Well, we're approaching the NBA draft. And with that, oftentimes players get moved. So we want to talk about some more realistic things with the 76ers of who could possibly be on the move once we get to next week. We'll get into it all next, right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit matchup to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. What's good, D?
Oh, a new week, man. A new week. That's what's good. What's good with you? How you feeling?
Nah, I'm all right. I'm getting a bad back, but brother be okay.
Hope it's all working out for you, man.
Yeah.
Hope it's all working out. I've been there, done that. Yeah, so I hope you're feeling better. Glad you're feeling better. Welcome, everybody. You are Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens. That is Keith Pompey, of course, from the Enquirer.com. And the Enquirer, Sixers beat reporter, beat writer extraordinaire. And we thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And remember, you can get Locked On 76ers right here, free and available. And, of course, on all platforms, including YouTube, right here on Locked On 76ers. We'll talk about Game 5 of the NBA Finals tonight as the Denver Nuggets, are looking to close out the Miami Heat back in Denver and end the series here and winning their world championship potentially. We'll also talk about some changes with the coaching staff. With Nick Nurse coming in, we figured we would try to figure out some things, what's going to happen with the coaches, and is being made more clearer with one potential hire. And also, we got to start things off with some realistic trade assets for the 76ers. What most of us know, or most of you know, what we know, is that the 76ers do not have trade assets in terms of draft picks. Those things have been moved on, the latest being the 2022 draft pick that was traded for DeAnthony Melton. So that happened. And with that happening, that was just another move that was made where draft picks have been moved on. So the Sixers don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of treasure trove like they used to in this case. So we got to look at some of the players and who is, of course, more eligible there to be traded. So, Keith, start off with asking you that. We already know the potential sign and trade situation with James Harden. Should he leave? Should he opt out, which we expect him to do? And then if he decides, let's say Houston or another franchise, maybe it's better to execute a sign and trade, similar to what we saw with Jimmy Butler years ago when he left to go to Miami. The Sixers in Miami worked out a sign and trade. Didn't work out all that well with it. That said, Keith, when you look at where we are right now, outside of the James Harden piece, what is a realistic trade asset for you for this particular roster?
You know, I think the one guy, I guess the elephant in the room, the person that people have been talking about for years is Tobias Harris. You know, I look at Tobias as the best trade asset that the 76ers have. You know, I mean, here's the thing. Like, of course, Joel Embiid is the guy that most teams would want. You would get a lot for with Joel Embiid. But at the same time, if you trade Joel Embiid, then you're basically rebuilding, in my opinion, right? You're going to rebuild. And I don't think the Sixers are prepared to do that. Tyrese Maxey has a huge upside as well. But I feel like as a guy who's going to make $39 million this year, a guy who is basically going into the final year of his contract, the Sixers probably don't want to extend him, talking about Tobias Harris. So with that being said, you know, you're going to want to trade him to get something back in return for that. Because if not, once he leaves in free agency, he's gone. So you look to him to be the best trade asset that the 76ers have. Now, the question is, who do you trade him to? And are you going to be able to get something equal parts back that can help you? And when you look at it as a fourth option, because that's what he is. If James Harden comes back, assuming James comes back, Tobias is going to be the fourth option. So with a fourth option, typically isn't a guy making $39 million. You could probably get a role player at that, and then maybe get a bench player too for him. And you think about it, and the Sixers aren't really missing a beat as long as the other guys produce and perform. So when I look at Tobias, I have to say that of all the guys, he's the best trade asset that they have and the most realistic one that they have.
Yeah, he's number one because Joel Embiid is not going anywhere. So Tobias Harris is number one for all those reasons that you laid out. A fourth option, I think he's a little bit better than a fourth option. I think, at worst, he's a third option. And that's probably where he is on one of these types of teams. When you look at the situation, which is very interesting, we'll get to the Denver piece later. It's Nikola Jokic's team. Jamal Murray is fantastic. We know as a number two. And Michael Porter, as far as his scoring ability, puts him above Aaron Gordon. So what makes Aaron Gordon maybe a better fourth option than Tobias Harris? Well, he does a lot of dirty work. Tobias does too. Scoring wise, it's a little bit different. They're different type of players. But Tobias Harris is a good player in this league, and he can score the basketball. His defense has even improved year after year, and he's getting older, but he has gotten much, much better as a defender over the course of his career. He can score a lot. So I guess the question would be, what is he on a championship team? Can he play a role on a championship team? So far through these 4 years, that has not played out the way that he nor his team has wanted, looking at them as a championship team, unfortunately. So I agree with you. I think that he is the more likely candidate to be one of being the number one trade asset, if that's in fact what the 76ers do on June 22nd next week. As the draft gets underway, that's when things start to really open up. The NBA moratorium closes down for free agency right thereafter, which is a week later or 8 days later. So we'll see. But I agree with you. It's Tobias Harris. If I had to give another one, since you took Tobias Harris, and that was the perfect one, I would go with DeAnthony Melton, Keith. I would say DeAnthony Melton on the final year of his contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
Final year of his contract. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Final year of his deal. And then you look at the Jaden Springer piece, where year 3 for him, it's time for him to get on the floor. So you're talking less, somebody who's making less. And while if you traded DeAnthony Melton somewhere, $9 million, $8-9 million on this deal, that you're going to get something back close to that to make the number work. Jaden Springer steps in and maybe plays a little bit more. Doesn't have the experience, obviously, as a year 3 player, but being a first round pick, it's time for him to get on the floor and contribute in some way. I don't know that he can average 10 points on the season, but he has to be out there. So if you're looking to maybe clear some playing time for one of your younger players that cost less and have an opportunity to do that, then I would look at DeAnthony Melton as another piece, Keith, that could potentially, in this case, be a trade asset. Sixers got him on draft night from Memphis for that pick, 2022, I believe it was. And that's why I look at it again here and feel like he's the next one for me if I go in that direction.
Yeah, and his thing is crazy too, because when you look at it, you're right. He's heading into the final year of his deal, and only 1.5 of it right now is fully guaranteed. Right? He's making 8. 1.5 is fully guaranteed, but if he's on the roster on July the 3rd, that's when it all becomes fully guaranteed. So yeah, it's like, wow, that's crazy, because you look at it and you say to yourself, like, man, like, this is a bargain, but this is somebody you'd be foolish to waive, you know what I mean? Because you get so much value with him.
Yeah, he's very valuable. But I mean, again, looking at it, Keith, is that I'm not going to say necessarily realistic, because of course we know it's realistic. Anybody can be moved. But would that be a surprise to you if they moved on via trade from DeAnthony Melton?
I don't think that anybody is. No, I'm. You look at it and you say to yourself all the great things he did this year, right? But I mean, this team knows that it needs to make some moves in order to get over the hump, and they gotta, and he's one of the better. I mean, one of the more tradable guys. Like if you can get a point guard, a solid point guard who's a quality defender, who's a better ball handler than him. Would I do it? Trade him right now? Probably not. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that they won't. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, this is going to be an interesting piece, and it's funny because now that you say that, I was on the air last week and I was talking. I kept bringing up one name because it was more the James Harden piece of if Harden leaves, Keith, and I was looking at some more cost-effective point guards around the league that may or may not be available. And one of the guys I came back to, and I brought him up probably 2-3 times last week and incorporated into the show, was looking at Monte Morris, former Denver Nugget, current Washington Wizard, who has 1 year left, $9.8 million, Keith. And Washington has a new front office. The owner has given them carte blanche to go out there and start to just simply rebuild this basketball team. So not to say that he's not valuable for Washington, but he might be more valuable to another team making $9.8 million to what you're saying. And I'm sure DeAnthony Melton wouldn't necessarily love this, to go to play for a team like Washington after playing for Memphis and the 76ers for these later part of these last few years of his career playing in the playoffs. Monte Morris, to what we're saying, a point guard that can run a team, ideally as a backup, but a point guard that can run the team, play some decent enough defense, and again, kind of springboard, allowing for Jaden Springer to play a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so just an interesting name that I keep going back to, just curious of it all. Also curious about this move that the 76ers made now with Nick Nurse as the new head coach. He's bringing in Bobby Jackson, Keith. As Sam Cassell moves out, Bobby Jackson is in. Is this basically a swap of these two coaches, of the roles that they have? Sam Cassell, mainly known for his player development and relationship with the players, Tyrese Maxey, James Harden. Bobby Jackson stepping in. What do we know? What does this look like now for the 76ers? Will Bobby Jackson be a pretty good addition to Nick Nurse's staff? We'll get into that next as we keep it going right here on Locked On 76ers. But I got to tell you, as we do this show, it is brought to you by BetterHelp. And BetterHelp, we've been talking to you about them for the entire basketball season. You want to make sure that you have your mental health right. You want to make sure that you take care of yourself. Spend some time with yourself. You're always looking to do for others. And often when that happens, you get lost from time to time when you're trying to make sure that you dedicate your time to everyone else and you forget about yourself. It's easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you, and you never take the moment or a moment to think about what you need from yourself. Like, for example, over the last week, I had a family emergency, and that took a lot of my day. I had to take care of that, had to juggle and shuffle some other things. And by the time I got back later in the evening, I was exhausted, man. And I didn't take enough time for myself. It was necessary for me to do the family part, but I also know that the next day I had to put something aside and just reshuffle the priority for the next day to make sure that I was right. It was exhausting. So with therapy, though, they can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting the others, family, friends, without leaving yourself behind. I've benefited from therapy in the past, and I always try to share with people that it's not a bad thing for you to also, if you feel the need to, talk to someone. Again, taking that time, trying to figure out how to move around and you have your feelings where you're not overwhelmed with things, to go in there and get some therapy. It's good for you. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if one is not necessarily working for you. Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we will dive into more off-season talk about your Philadelphia 76ers. Keith, a coach is out and a new coach comes in. Sam Cassell, very popular in Philadelphia among the fan base, seeming to be the same for James Harden and Tyrese Maxey on the roster. Former players we know, former NBA champion, and a longtime assistant in the NBA with Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is out. Sam Cassell now moves on to Boston to help on the sideline for Joe Mazzulla's staff. Bobby Jackson, the G League coach for the Sacramento Kings and a longtime assistant as well in Sacramento, now in with the Philadelphia 76ers on Nick Nurse's staff. This is the first move, Keith, that we're hearing as far as a coach joining the bench for Nick Nurse's staff. First, the Sam Cassell piece. How surprised were you that he's now going to Boston, leaving Philadelphia, and what did he do here in Philadelphia?
I wasn't surprised. I mean, because maybe surprised that Boston hired him, right? Like, oh, he's leaving, Sixers go to Boston. But when you look at it, when they got rid of Doc Rivers, basically this was a coaching staff that Doc hired before Daryl Morey came in. So Daryl didn't have anything to do with it, right? So you look at it and you say to yourself that for the most part, you expect them to be gone because the new coach wants his own people. Daryl Morey will want his people. And, Sam just happened to be a casualty in that. The thing about it is when you look at it and you look at Sam's development and his relationship with players, and you see the direction that Boston is going, and they have this young coach, this is a great addition for the Celtics, especially with those young players that they have, those young all-stars. I mean, Sam is the guy who keeps it 100. He's a great development coach. I mean, you look at some of the things he did with Maxey, some of the things he did with John Wall when he was in Washington, Ben Simmons, James worked out with James Harden, this and that. So I think is great. The thing about Bobby Jackson, I guess Bobby Jackson to a lot of people out here is a huge unknown, but then when we look at it, you look at De'Aaron Fox, you see how now I don't know how much Bobby Jackson had to do with it, but he was the player development coach there for a while. And you look at De'Aaron Fox, who has evolved to become an all-star. You look at Buddy Hield, who, he was a great shooter at Oklahoma, but also he was a great shooter in Sacramento. You look at some of these other guys, Halliburton, all these guys. So you say to yourself, like, we'll find out if Bobby had a hand in that. But, he's a former combo guard in the league, a guy, player development. You look at it and maybe that could be a good fit for Tyrese Maxey. Here's a guy who was a combo guard. He was a sixth man of the year at one point. He was made the all rookie team. So again, I think losing Sam is huge. I think a huge loss, but at the same time, I'm trying to give Bobby a little bit of a benefit of the doubt because we don't know much about him as a coach.
Right.
But he has had some pretty good guards under his leadership.
Yeah, I do know the one thing that he did have his team in the playoffs. So
yeah,
they were coached well, I guess, and Nick Nurse has had some okay staffs. So if he's bringing Bobby Jackson on, he sees something. Whether he'll be in the Sam Cassell role or one of these others, not sure. Just another one. It's not announced yet, but we're not sure what the other guys on the staff, Dan Burke or Dave Yeager, of what their potential roles could be either here or elsewhere. So we're still awaiting on that and waiting to find out where things are going with those two gentlemen. But Bobby Jackson in, Sam Cassell out. People know him as a player, not necessarily as a coach. So this could be very interesting once we do find out a little bit more from Nick Nurse about his staff. Coming up next, we'll talk about Game 5 of the NBA Finals. The Denver Nuggets up 3-1 in the series, looking to close things out against the Miami Heat. Miami has had a fantastic playoff run, a great postseason run as a play-in team. Might be coming to an end tonight, and we'll discuss it next, give our thoughts on Game 5 ahead of Nuggets Heat next right here, Locked On 76ers.
Let's talk about PrizePicks, right? Now, here's the thing. The thing about PrizePick, I really love this thing, and I'm not a gambler, and I keep telling y'all that over and over again. So some of you guys probably don't believe me, but I'm keeping it real. I love it. And the reason why I love it is because of the $1 million daily Superflex promotions. So every day of the NBA Finals, one PrizePicks uners will win a chance to become a millionaire. One entry placed after 7 a.m. Eastern Time will be randomly selected each day. Whoever placed that entry will be given a 6-pick flex with the following payouts. 6 correct picks, $1 million. 5 correct picks, $80,000. 4 correct picks, $16,000. Full details can be found at prizepicks.com/million. You must opt in at this league to be eligible for the $1 million entry. Once you opt in, all you have to do is play the game like normal, and you could be the lucky winner, right? So here's the deal. Tonight, I'm taking Nikola Jokic to score more than 26.5 points. I want Jokic to have more than 7.5 rebounds, and I want Jokic to have more than 6.5 assists. Oh, and Jamal Murray, I think that he'll have more than 3.5 3-pointers made. Yeah, if you notice, I'm going heavily on the Denver side because I think they're going to win tonight, right? So how does this work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will score more or less than their PrizePick projections, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, and on and on and on, right? So entries can be made 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals, right? Download the PrizePick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. I'm telling y'all, do it today, people. Definitely do it today.
Well, with all of that, let's get into the NBA Finals in game number 5. 3-1 series lead right now for the Denver Nuggets. And this is right about where I had him, Keith. I had him at a minimum 5 games and maximum 6 games that'll take care of the Miami Heat. And it seems about right. I felt like at some point the Tyler Hero injury, the fact that the roster is good, they have a leader in Jimmy Butler, the way that they do, and they can do so many really good things. Great coaching, Eric Spoelstra, the best coach, in my opinion, in the NBA currently, that it would catch up to him, though, because you're going to, after all they had to get through to make sure that they got to the playoffs, it's playing the Game 7 playing game against the Atlanta Hawks, losing that one, going into the next playing game against the Chicago Bulls, a very close game where they had to win it in the latter stages of the fourth quarter, running through Milwaukee, and then all that they've done here and to get to where they are right now, a Game 5, taking one of the games. Keith, I just look at this as the Denver Nuggets are going to be crowned NBA champions later tonight. Of course, Miami could steal one and force a Game 6 back in Miami, but either way, man, I think the Denver Nuggets are the better team. And I actually do think they closed it out tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. They are the better team, and when you look at it, so much has to go right for Miami to win. And I also think that they played too many games. I mean, I think that playing 7 games against the Boston Celtics took a lot out of them. Now, again, I know they came back and won game 2, and I get it. This finals, there's like 2 days in between games. But at the same time, I feel like, a guy like Jimmy Butler, is a lot of miles on those legs, playoff miles, so to speak. So it's kind of like, he gets a little tired. He can't do the things that he once was. And right now, as good as these guys are, or as well as they're playing, as hard as they're playing, there is a talent disparity, and it's like to a point where, grit and will and all that can get you far. But when you go up against a team like Denver that has so much firepower, it's hard, man. It's hard. And like, we're looking at Michael Porter Jr. struggling, but everybody else is coming in, stepping up off the bench and playing well. You got Aaron Gordon, you know, again, a guy that they look at as like a third or fourth option, but he's a legit player, getting 27 points the last game. So I just look at it like Miami had a phenomenal season. Like you said, they're banged up. They're playing well, but I just look at is sometimes we got to give this Denver Nuggets team his flowers and just say that this is the best team playing right now.
I definitely give them their props. I enjoy watching them play as a basketball fan. I enjoy watching how they do things, how they get it done, led by Nikola Jokic. Decent set of role players around him. All-star level player also in Jamal Murray. We know that he's been coming back from the ACL injury. So to see him come back, rounding back into form and playing on this stage at the level that he is currently playing at. Nikola Jokic in foul trouble in the last game. You got Aaron Gordon leading them in scoring in that game. And you have big shots, big numbers from Bruce Brown, Keith, off the bench, 20-plus points, hitting big shots. Christian Brown, the rookie from Kansas, playing well. This is a really good basketball team, and they deserve to win this series. I think they will win this series. I'm not surprised to see how this has all played out for the Denver Nuggets. This is only going to now, Keith, if he wins the championship, which we think that they will, whether it's Game 5 tonight, Game 6 the next game, or even then Game 7, the Joel Embiid Jokic conversations will start to resurface once again once this thing is over and done with.
Yeah, they will. They will. Yeah, they will. I mean, but you know what? It's also understand where people are coming from. But I mean, that's maybe something we could talk about in the next podcast because, it is what it is. I give it that, right? Yeah, I understand where people are coming from. But at the same time, I also feel like the regular season is the regular season and the playoffs is the playoffs.
I hear you. Well, listen, man, as always, appreciate hanging out with you. And we want to thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on the show or on our next episode. How about that? We'll talk a little bit about what Keith is laying out there, potentially Jokic Embiid conversation yet again. All right. Well, listen, Keith, you might as well, do you mind, pardon me, letting the good folks know where they could find us?
Yeah, it can find us. You can find us on wherever you get your podcast at, but make sure you go and go to our YouTube channel. When you do that, click on the Liberty Bell. You become a new subscriber. But also, you can listen to my man D on the Divine Giving Show, which runs Mondays through Fridays traditionally from 6 to 10. What time you on there tonight? 6 to 10 tonight?
6 to 10.
6 to 10, right? And then you can follow D at Divine G975, right? On Twitter. You can follow me on Pompey on Sixers on Twitter. And you can read my articles in the Philadelphia Inquirer.com.
Well, listen, man, always good to catch up. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, man. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.